Our mic's working.
Yep. Good morning. Welcome. And so welcome to our talk called Are You a Wounded Healer? I'm Angie. This is John. Don't know what else we need to say about that. Okay. So I just want to say a little bit about what we're doing today. We'll start off looking at the concept of a wounded healer, and then we're going to do an exercise on one of our own wounds, and it's got 5 practical steps to it. And from everything I've done with this exercise, I know that once I've done the exercise, I don't have the wound anymore. So we'll have to see what happens. So I'm just going to introduce this concept. As many of you know, it was Carl Jung who made the concept of the wounded healer famous, you could say, or well known. But it's a very, very old concept, and it comes from a Greek myth. So what Carl Jung said is the doctor is effective only when he himself is affected, and only the wounded healer heals. He actually said that what he called diseases of the soul were a good basis for being a healer. But what he warned against was our own wounds opening up when we treated people. And we probably what drew most people to being a healer was something of their own wounds, but they can be opened up because if there's people similar to us, then that can have an effect. The actual myth was a myth of Chiron, and Chiron was a centaur, half man, half beast, and he was wounded by one of the arrows from Hercules. And he doesn't die, but he suffers excruciating pain forevermore. And the myth is that because of this pain, he was a legendary healer in Greek mythology and maybe in real life. So he became a wonderful healer just because of his wounds. So we're just going to say a little bit about us and our wounds, because obviously if we're here talking about a wounded healer, you can expect that we had wounds in the first place. My family background was a mother who was very depressed and became bipolar, and her family history was a history of bipolar. So I spent a lot of my kind of teenage years and 20s being really nervous about the same thing happening to me. My brother committed suicide when I was 19, which was a massive wound for me, and one that I think, although at the time I was totally unconscious of it, I think it was one of the things that spurred me on to do acupuncture and wanting to help other people. But that was all kind of, I just knew I wanted to do something, and acupuncture was the thing that really, really attracted me. And I think one of the reasons for that was the fact that it could have not only the physical effect, but there's such an amazing psychological, emotional, spiritual effect. And that's my history was what pushed me towards that. So acupuncture has been my passion, and also I've done something called focusing, and I've also done NLP, but focusing has been something that's propelled me forward because that has also helped to heal my wounds. And wounds, I don't think I'm now without wounds. I think this is something that is a process. It's a life process.
My early wounds are still kind of being processed, but it was the process by which I became an acupuncturist that really puzzled me. I was in business. I was quite happy, I thought, doing what I was doing. And suddenly, when I had a daughter who was particularly ill. Amongst other things, she had talipes and couldn't walk. And it's like my life's changed dramatically. I spent up to 3 years basically just spending a lot of time with her, holding her fingers as she was kind of trying to be able to take steps. And it was when she was about 3.5 or 4 years old that she could finally walk. But I couldn't tell the difference between me and her. And it was a long process. But the dramatic thing was that at one point, a friend said to me, "Have you ever thought of being an acupuncturist?" And I went, well, and I didn't know what to say. But within 6 months, I was on an acupuncture course. I graduated, and then I had the dilemma, do I give up my work, which was quite lucrative at that time, or do I become an acupuncturist? And that was 1974. And I told my mother I was going to be an acupuncturist, and she said to me, "Is it all right if I don't tell my friends?" And several of my close friends and other friends said, "Are you out of your mind?" As if it was a crazy thing to do. But the thing I remember most, and this is kind of complex, I had no doubt at one point. It just happened, and I had to do it. So it was one of the craziest and the best things I ever did. And since it happened to me, I've spent a lot of time going, well, why would I want to do this when I could have a life that was much more comfortable in some ways and so on. So you all may have a background, and I'm going to ask you several questions later, like, why in the world are you doing this? It's a little more respectable nowadays than it was in 1974, but it was a strange process for me.
Oh, just a sec. You can have a guess of who's who in those. That's us. Maybe before we had wounds, but maybe already wounded. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions as a preparation to the exercise we'd like you to go through. So I've asked a lot of people, what's important to you about being an acupuncturist? Some of you will probably remember that question. And often what it gets down to is, I want to be able to help other people. And that's the ultimate satisfaction. Does anybody go, no, I did it for the money? Probably not. And so what motivates people to go to work? And it often is that you can help other people in one way or another. It may be more with musculoskeletal problems, it may be more with mental issues and so on. So if you ask yourself that question, you probably come up with, I want to help other people. But what I'm putting to you right now, I'd like you to ask the question that goes one loop higher. What is it about helping other people that's important to you? So if what was taken away from you was that you couldn't have your practice be out there helping people, what would that do to you? So there's a bunch of people who have nothing to do with acupuncture, and they wouldn't miss that at all. But I think most of us in this room would miss doing that. I mean, I could have retired quite a long time ago, but the thing I really would have missed is actually treating people, helping them get better, and so on. So the question again, what is important to you about being able to help people? If you just take that one on. Now, if you look at these two guys over here, the healer's on the left, and he's portrayed as a man, and most of the healers I know are women. But his dark side has a wound, and do we have a, Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
His dark side has a wound, and there's a connection here. The illness is dark side too. And that's true that you can cut yourself, you can wound yourself in various ways, but the other wounds we're talking about are ones that we're not aware of, things that happened to us in the past that we're not aware of. So this is a patient, and there's a connection here. And if you want to go back to what Jung said that's really, the dark side is really important. So knowing something about your dark unconscious side, which is the answer in a way to the question I asked you, that's important. So one of the things that is more obvious nowadays is that we are separate from other people. We have patients, we have friends, we have relationships. But on the other hand, are we the same in some way? And since motor neurons have been discovered, then in some way we know that we're not separate. We're actually other people as well as us. Because when we die, we just disappear. And there's a Buddhist notion that we don't have a permanent self. So motor neurons were discovered by a monkey who was wired up. His brain was wired up, and he was watching another monkey. And the psychologist who was there watched the other monkey unfold a banana and start to eat it. And the brain of the monkey observing, the brain changed in such a way as if this monkey was eating a banana too. So it's like when you engage with someone and they do something, there's part of you that in a way does the same thing. You can do this consciously, and it gets called matching, but it happens to you anyway. So how many people here have been with a patient and walked out of the room and had a symptom that the patient had? That's a really neat trick. And you probably didn't know how you did it, right? But somehow, just by going close to another human being, the part of them that is the same as the part of you can merge.
It's mirror neurons.
Huh?
Mirror neurons.
So it's an interesting quote from Jung. I'll read it, but you can do it. What if I should discover that the least amongst them all, the poorest of the beggars, the most impudent of offenders, the very enemy himself or herself, that these are within me and that I stand in need of the alms of my own kindness, that I myself am the enemy, so who must be loved. So what then? So most spiritual traditions actually speak of this in one way or another, that we need to be able to be kind to ourselves, first of all, before we can be kind to others, because it's the same stuff in there. So the implicit in this is that our wounds can motivate us. So why would it be useful to know about your wounds? Because that's the exercise we hope to do today, that you can be more aware of your own wounds. Would it make us more balanced? Would it give us insight? Would it help us heal ourselves? Because the wounded healer actually doesn't always have a practitioner, so to speak. What would that be like? So we expect today that you may get some theoretical change, but we hope you also get some experiential change. So I'm going to ask the question again. What's important to you about helping other people? I just want you to let that question sink in. Has anybody got an obvious answer? Do you just go, right? Yeah. We can't hear.
Give,
Gives me a sense of purpose.
Oh, we've got a microphone actually, but he said gives him a sense of purpose. Oops, let's pass the mic.
Okay, let me just ask you, why would that give you a sense of purpose?
Something they can put my attention on, or than just
Okay.
There you go. I think it's on.
As well as obviously the benefits of learning just from that contact with other people. That's one aspect. And another one, I guess, is some sort of sense of feeling valuable, some sense of self-worth, inner worth,
Okay.
yeah.
Lexi.
Go ahead. I'm a Buddhist, and I believe that we're all connected. We are all brothers and sisters, and so it's my connection to my brothers and sisters that is important to me.
Okay.
I'm going to say, oh, is it working?
Yes.
Okay. The mind-blowing joy when one brings greater balance to the person one's treating, the energy in the room, oneself, and the sun comes out.
Just a minute.
Nice.
Legs and I go back a long way. What's important about that?
Mind-blowing, joyful.
Okay. So,
Okay. Woo. Okay, we're going to start doing an exercise in a minute. So we're going to, apply this to our own wounds, but I'm just going to say put a few things in place to make sure that when we do it, we're all clear about what's happening. So before starting, just want to say we're all practitioners here, or if we're not, I'm sure we understand the idea of being a practitioner. And if anything comes up that is personal, then it's confidential. You never repeat what anybody says that is about themselves outside this room. So anything that goes on in that kind of way, are you all right with confidentiality? I can't imagine you're not, but anybody not okay with confidentiality, more to the point? Okay, that's fine. Secondly, privacy. When you're doing the exercise, if there's anything that comes up that you feel embarrassed about or you feel ashamed of or anything like that, which may or may not happen, but if it did, then you don't have to say it out loud. You could know that you're going to be working with partners at times. You don't have to say to somebody else exactly what it is. You just have to say that you're getting what you are able to do the exercise without speaking about that, if you prefer it. And finally, I put keeping yourself safe. That's more like the structure of the exercise should keep yourself safe. So as long as you keep to the way the exercise is being done, then you will feel absolutely fine as you go through it. So don't go off on your own thing and get kind of into a load of emotional stuff or something like that, and keep yourself unsafe, and you'll understand that later. Secondly, we'll give you a certain amount of time for each piece of the exercise, so please stick to time, and we'll give you a few minutes warning before we're stopping. Now, you've seen this in two sections, but actually we're going right through to 11 o'clock when you've got a half-hour break, because it's hard to stop something right in the middle. We will be doing demos. We might demo on each other, or otherwise we might ask you to come up and do some things. Now, some people don't like the idea of that. Okay, that's fine. Better that. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is to find yourself a partner. Maybe just take somebody very close by you, or if you've got somebody you particularly want to partner with, and sit next to or be close by that person. So you might want to change positions. You've got partners? Yes, yes.